This is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue our discussion on D20 Modern, the modern take of the 3rd edition of Dungeons & Dragons. Let's continue where we left off with talking about some actions in combat. There's a few more I want to handle. We'll talk about some attacks of opportunity and move into injury and taking damage during your turn. Let's talk actions. There's the withdrawal. Now, the withdrawal is another full round action. That we were talking about full round actions last time. This one is used to prevent yourself from leaving yourself open when you're basically withdrawing for combat. You make a movement that you can move up to twice your speed, and the first square that you leave from does not provoke an attack of opportunity. So that's effectively what I'm saying is, I'm getting away from this opponent. The first square I'm leaving from them does not provoke attack of opportunity. If any of my movement after that moves to a square that would provoke, of course I would provoke an attack of opportunity, but is attempting to withdraw from combat. If I would be trying to use a type of movement that requires a skill roll, such as a swimming or a climbing, I can't use it. I can't use it for my withdrawal. I have to have no kind of dice roll when related to making a withdrawal action. I just have to be doing it. And of course, you can't use a 5-foot step as part of it because I'm making movement in this. Now, there are a number of things that are miscellaneously actioned. These are kind of skills, feats, and talents, which will tell you under the skills, feats, and talents what kind of action it will be for you to take effectively to use that type of action. You will have to look to those to see what kind of action you're going to take. Let's talk about attacks of opportunity, because normally when you're in combat, you're trying to defend yourself, not leave yourself open, but there are chances in time where you leave yourself open to an attack where an opponent can make a melee attack against you and try to damage you. Now, if it says this is a normal melee attack, now you could use unarmed for this. Your opponent could, if they are trained in a way that makes it that they threaten, or they are armed with effectively an unarmed strike. Now, when I'm making that attack, I make it most of the time is when my opponent is going to move away from me. There are, of course, other kind of actions that would provoke an attack of opportunity. Those will be listed under those actions, usually that they provoke. But traditionally, when you're talking about attacks of opportunity, it's either moving away, or, well, we can say that if you make a ranged attack at someone point blank, that would also encounter. For the moving away, the one way, there's a couple of ways you could try to avoid this. You could make a 5-foot step. Making a 5-foot step does not provoke an attack of opportunity. You could use it to try to step away from an opponent. You don't get any more movement afterwards, but you can use it to step away. The other way is, of course, a withdrawal, which I just talked about. You can withdraw away from an opponent to prevent them from doing it. Now, you or your opponents can only make attacks of opportunity into round areas that they threaten. Traditionally, that's all around them, but things that might be larger size might have more threatened area. If you have certain weapons that might have more reach, then of course you might threaten longer away from you. But it is your threatened area that you are using to provoke attacks of opportunity, and things that are within those are opening up to it. Traditionally, you get one attack of opportunity a turn, and you can choose whether you're going to take it or not. Someone could provoke it, and you could choose to retain it for another point in time. When I make an attack of opportunity, regardless of the number of attacks I have and the number of attacks I've made in my round, I use it at my highest attack bonus. So that means, granted, like I might have iterative attacks. So I make an attack, I made an attack at a lower bonus, I made another attack at a lower bonus. My highest attack bonus is what I'm going to be using for this melee attack. Let's talk about hit points. Hit points represents the amount of damage your character can take before they're in trouble. Now, your hit points can go up and down as you take damage or you heal from various things, but effectively when you're talking about what your hit points represent, they represent your ability to first make a attack that's against you to kind of mitigate its effect on you, to make a more serious wound into a lesser wound, but it also represents a sort of mental fortitude to be able to withstand a bunch of hits to you and keep on going without being affected by it. Now, of course, as you continually take damage and more damage and more damage, your hit points will go down until eventually they hit 0. Now, let's talk about a little side note here of conditions, because some of these things that you're going to be hitting when you're taking damage actually are conditions at certain point in times. I'll talk about stagger in a second. There's a list of conditions in the book. However you get any of these conditions, they affect your character. You can look at them. If you look at the effects they would have on your character individually, I'm not going to go through the entire list. There's a lot of them. But effectively, something happens to you, you get a condition. Now, when you're taking damage, of course, you go until you go down to 0. If you are, for somebody who's helpless or unconscious or whatever, when someone would hit you, there's no way to defend against yourself. You're just going to take the damage. When you hit 0, you are staggered. You can't really do a lot. From -1 to -9, you are dying. At -10, you are dead. Now let's talk about massive damage, because you can take massive damage, which could just kill you off. If you take an amount of damage from a single hit equal to your Constitution score, that means the entire score, you are at risk for massive damage. You've taken a huge hit, which will give shock to your body. You must make a Fortitude save DC 15 or die. It's as simple as that. Now, there's a similar effect for when you're talking about non-lethal damage. Non-lethal damage is not tracked the same way as damage. It's effectively you're taking it and you don't keep track of it. You really don't. If you take enough non-lethal damage equivalent to your Constitution score or more, you have to make a DC 15 Fortitude save. If you make it, you are dazed. Effectively, you get a small condition for a minute. If you fail it, you are unconscious for 1d4 plus 1 rounds. Now, I will note that if you compare a lot of characters and you think about hit points, something like a strong hero or a tough hero versus a smart hero, yes, the tough hero can take a lot more hits, has a lot more hit points. It seems like they could take a lot more punishment. You know, physically, you don't think that actually. It's more of those abilities, those mental abilities to shrug off, you know, like, oh, this hit that was going to deepen my shoulder. I pulled back right at the last second, so it's only a little cut in my shoulder. Or, you know, I can take a couple more bruises. Kind of things like that make the difference between the training of the tough hero and the smart hero. Just wanted to say that. So that's it for today. I finished talking about the various actions you can take, including withdrawing, and then, of course, talking about attacks of opportunity, and moved in talking about injury, about taking damage, how it affects your character, the different conditions you can get as part of, like, just adventuring in general, whether it's through taking damage, weapons, maybe monsters if you have those in your world, or magic if you have those in your world. Next time, I'm going to talk about death, healing, and movement. So if you have any questions, comments, anything to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to support the channel, the Empire, and the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can check out my Patreon, linked in the description below. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.